does it for the readings. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce our speaker. She comes to us from California, and Olis, is that the way you say your name, Olis? I did that right.
Yep.
We are delighted to have you with us in this chat room tonight, this Zoom room. So we'd love to hear your story. So come on. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Hi, family. My name is Olis, and I'm a grateful member of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right.
My sobriety date is May 21st, 1987, and nobody is more stunned by that than me. You know, I want to begin with thank yous and appreciations, because meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous don't happen by pixie dust. It takes real sacrifice, and lots of people make it happen. So I want to appreciate Eric for booking me, for sending me the flyer, for reminding me. I want to thank you, Jeannie, for your leadership. And then I want to thank our leaders, David, Derek, and Ryan, right? It takes a collective action for us to do this. Somebody's the treasurer, somebody's paying the Zoom bill, right? All of these things go into creating this space for us to come together and learn from each other. So I want to thank you guys for inviting me to join you. You know, I'm old school Alcoholics Anonymous, and I believe the only reason for me to ever open my mouth in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous is to provide an adequate representation of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to talk about my cat, my lawn mower, my mom I'm still mad at, even though she's dead and in the ground. That's not it. And even though those things may or may not be true, that has no value to the person who still suffers. And my purpose is to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people around me. And in order to do that, I've got to be in the solution. So, you know, I don't work a perfect program. I'm not levitating. I've not graduated over these 3+ decades to be a saint. I am nutty as a fruitcake. I mean, it's just the truth of the matter. But I know it today. I know it today. So, you know, I'm a mover and I'm a traveler. And when I travel, you know, I go to AA. I go check us out because we're different in different parts of the world. And I just moved back to Oakland, California, where I got sober. You know, I'm born and raised in New York City. I'm the third of 4 girls. We're all 5 years apart. Ask any woman. Ask any woman. No woman has kids over a 2-decade period on purpose. Each of us was like the last kid. I'm sure of it, right? And then, you know, there we were. And you know, I used to tell this very sad story about how my mother abandoned me. And I don't tell that story anymore. Because whether or not that story is true, the truth is that victims don't recover. The truth is that as long as what has happened to me and is happening with me is somebody else, there's no solution to be had by me. You know, there's a speaker who many of us probably know, Peter M. And I went to a meeting, I don't know, many months ago. And Peter said, not freedom for me, freedom from me. Exactly. I suffer from my point of view. You know, that's what freedom from bondage of self is. The seeing this world, the whole thing, the play, the actors, the scenery, the ballet, the other, like seeing it my way. This fatal desire to wrest satisfaction out of life. If I just work harder. You know, I don't know about you, but, you know, and I'm going to walk through, well, let me tell you about my drinking. So at 4 years old, I'm alone with my mother. And she's not been my primary caretaker. I've been with her oldest sister, who loved me and adored me and poured into me. I pray that each of you have had that and that each of you can be that for someone. She poured into me. And I needed that to balance out the reality of what I was facing at my mom's house, right? But it took all of it to make me who I am, and I'm so grateful for all of it. So I'm alone with my mother and I'm 4, and I must be thinking, I must be thinking, who are these people, right? And my mother, I'm maybe not the smartest girl in the world, but even at 4, I knew I needed to fit in. I needed to get in order to be safe. And I wanted the thing that I think all of us want, whether we're drunks or not. I wanted love. I wanted acceptance. I wanted a sense of safety. So I'm in the kitchen with my mother. It's my first memory of being alone with her. I realized that during the pandemic. This notion in the book of when we look back, page 100, first full paragraph, man, is powerful. When we look back. Because life is lived forward, but it's understood backward. When we look back. And I'd argue that Alcoholics Anonymous is a program of looking back. When we look back. I love that paragraph. The last sentence is my favorite. I'm going to talk about it. But when I was looking back in the pandemic, we're all locked in the house. Lots of time with us. I realized my first memory of a drink was my first memory alone with my mother. She's drinking a can of Schaefer beer, and there are 2 things I don't know at 4 years old. I don't know the Schaefer beer is cheap beer. And I don't know that beer is not a breakfast beverage. I'm just 4. She's drinking it, and, I want to be loved. And if I'm honest, any of us are honest, and we use these spiritual exercises that are in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which usually begin with a question. I can look at that behavior and see that behavior of doing what you do, mirroring your behavior to seek approval and acceptance has got me in a lot of trouble over and over and over again. But at 4, I start. That might not even been the beginning, but it's the first time I remember doing it. And I asked my mother if I can have some of it. She thinks it's cute and she says yes. And then the doorbell rings. Oh. She leaves me alone with a can of beer. And what do? Finish it. Wouldn't you finish it? I finish it. And I'm not going to tell you that 4 I started drinking on a regular basis because I don't remember, and I probably did not. It's hard at 4 to get access to alcohol on a regular basis. But by 8, I've made the decision to drink scotch. Now, I don't know about you. I'm a Browns girl. And let me make the analogy about the bar in Alcoholics Anonymous. And you guys can put me out if you'd like after I say this. I think that Alcoholics Anonymous is a lot like the bar. That I can go to the bar and I can get a light beer. Like I can go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and get AA Light. Where we talk about the fellowship and we tell people things that are not in the book. And I'm not mad at the fellowship. I love the fellowship. You know what the fellowship's going to do? Visit me in the hospital. They're going to help me move. The fellowship. Somebody might bake some fresh cookies to go with that bad coffee we make. I love the fellowship. But it really is, I think, AA Light. But I was never a light beer girl. I was a hard drinker, like a hard liquor drinker. So at 8 years old, I started drinking scotch. Seeking love and approval. I'm the kid that hangs behind when my I think she's sick. She's probably hungover, right? But I want to hang around because, maybe she'll love me if I could just, stay home from school and do whatever she wants. The neighbor upstairs always had a full bar. And so it was my job to go upstairs with a water glass, and fill it up with scotch. And one day, I'd done that many times. On the way down, I made the decision. It must be magic. The most powerful person in the world needs it. It must be magic. And at 8 years old, I made the decision to start drinking scotch. By 11, I'm drinking regularly. And at 13, I have my first major drunk at a bar called the Tiger Lounge on 7th Avenue and 115th Street. And it's not surprising that when I got here at 26, right? Which, by the way, meant that I had already been drinking 22 years. I was done. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to be honest with you. I still had on my teeth, and I thought I was going to get a new job and a new relationship, and I was not coming to stay. Do you know demographically, Alcoholics is like an old white man program? And I looked around and I was like, absolutely no. I was a young Black woman, absolutely not. And I've learned some things that I think, because I am a Black woman, that I've got to learn that other people don't have to learn, which is the outside doesn't matter. It's just the shell. The thing that really matters is the soul inside the shell. And Alcoholics Anonymous teaches us how to do that, how to connect with the person. You know, like I said, I travel a lot. You know what I know when I go to a meeting and the people don't, I'm visiting. I know y'all don't know me. And the people don't greet me. For all they know, I'm brand new. That we are supposed to welcome the new person, welcome the visitor. It is our responsibility. And it's a spiritual practice to set aside my need to chit-chat with the people that I know, to be the cool kid and welcome the newcomer. So I get here at 26 years old and I don't come to stay. I come, like a NASCAR pit stop. I'm going to get some air in my tires and clean the windshield, and off we go. And some old timers took me aside. And they said, people who do H&I work never drink again. Now, that wasn't a particularly interesting thing to me. Like, the idea of never drinking again wasn't like, oh, yay. But I was like, let me check it out. And it turns out, and I don't hear that in other parts of the country, but you hear it in Oakland. People who do H&I work never drink again. I never drank again. I never drank again. I probably broke all the rules, right? They gave me a box and they told me to put some books in it at the H&I meeting. Who's been to an H&I meeting? You go and you get a cardboard box and then there's books everywhere. They're like, fill up your box. And then they gave me a list and they were like, these 2 meetings are yours. What? I didn't have a sponsor. I hadn't worked the steps. I wonder if I met the 6-month requirement. I don't even know. But I never drank again. I took meetings in. I read the literature. People would see me come in and duck me because I was always looking for speakers. I began my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous in service. And what I didn't realize, because we don't know this, is that the things that I was doing, which seemed to have absolutely nothing to do with solving my problems, that flimsy reed was the powerful and loving hand of God. The powerful and loving hand through you, through your service. I want to talk about the steps because I love talking about the steps. And I love sharing with people what I've come to understand about the steps, about the book, about the work, about the journey. Not because I necessarily know something you don't know, but because I think it's my responsibility in this relationship to throw something in the pot. You know what I mean? To add something to the gumbo. And when I go to meetings and there are speakers, I get things from them. What I've learned is that I do best when people ask me questions. So I'm a person who puts out considerations. My latest consideration is, if the things that other people do, if the things that other people say, if the way that other people act determines how I move, am I free? If I justify my poor behavior because you hit me first, am I free? And of course the answer is no. What's this have to do with Alcoholics Anonymous? Everything. Because my journey isn't about not drinking. Not drinking is the least interesting part of my life. I've not drank so long that I was hanging out with somebody a couple months ago and they were like, yeah, I thought it would be interesting to hang out with you because you don't drink. And then I remembered I don't drink. It's just such a part of who I am that it isn't even special anymore. But I now, in that moment, I was like, wow, that's right. It's a big deal to some people. Most of my life now is Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm that person in the book where, some of us are so situated that, most of our time can be used. Yeah, That's true for me. That's true. Page 23, top paragraph. So I'm going to walk through the steps, but I want you to keep in mind this first consideration, right? Am I free? Am I able to move and live and be in the world with each of you in a way that I can still be in alignment with what I believe is the will of my power? Or do I vary how I move based on what you do? Because that is not freedom for me. So you get here at 26 and, we're still cleaning ashtrays because we're still smoking in meetings in 1987. Remember those days? And, I'm asked to do a series of things that seem ridiculous. I'm asked to do a series of things that I don't believe have anything to do with solving my problem. And thank God I learned early 2 things. 1, it's a program of willing, not a program of wanting. I don't want to. I don't want to speak. I don't want to sponsor. I don't want to be bothered. I have streaming services. Now, that's not true for everybody. That's not true. Lots of my colleagues love it. Oh my God, they love it. That's just not been true for me. And I don't feel bad about that. I'm who I am, right? I'm selfish and self-centered and self-seeking in a way that I'm almost hermetic. Like if I could paint and listen to some music and watch some stuff, I'm happy. But I'm willing to do the things that I have to do, not only for me, but to demonstrate my surrender to the power that I believe. And that means when people ask me to sponsor, I say yeah. When people ask me to speak, I say yeah. I answer the phone when it jangles day and night. Like I do the things that I don't want to do in order to have the life that I want to have. That's just the deal. That's the deal I've learned. So when I got here, we weren't in Oakland, California, big book people. We weren't book reading. We had a lot of speaker discussion, lot of speaker discussion meetings, right? I went to a speaker discussion meeting. I just moved back here on Friday night. And the guy got up, I hate that I'm recorded saying this. The guy got up and read 2 poems that he had written. And he talked for 35 minutes. And I never personally heard him say the big book, sponsor, inventory, amends, service. I never heard any of that. Now, I'm a good kid. I'm going to go sit in the front row. I'm sitting in the front row in the man's mouth. And I'm dying. I'm dying. Because there's 100 people there. And what about the person who needs to know there's a way up and a way out? I went and asked, could I please help them book? I love booking. It's my favorite job. When Eric booked me and I couldn't make it, I was like, let me send you some people. I think I sent him 13 names. Man, I love, and I mean heavy hitters. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've got a set of people that I travel the online meeting world with that are extraordinary. And I go up to the guy and I was like, can I help you book? And he was like, this is an in-between meeting. Well, what the hell does that mean? Well, the newcomer doesn't, we don't want all, I was like, okay. And I left. I don't need to be mad at them people. I called my friend. I did a 10-step on it, had 2 panna cotta desserts and went to bed. Right. Because not everybody needs to do it the way that I do it, right? I refuse to suffer from my point of view. There's this speaker, I'm sure I sent you, Eric, this guy, Kurt Z. And Kurt says, thank God I am not suffering from the things that are not happening. Right. Because what I want to do is live in the future and live in the past, but God is now. But let me get to the steps. So the things that I'm going to talk about are not the things I grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous on. They're the things that I've learned on the road. And I'll say that the pandemic has revolutionized my recovery. Just revolutionized my recovery. In some ways, that's amazing. But in other ways, it's not really that great for me because I used to live in the bushes. I used to hide in the bushes. I like the bushes. I like obscurity. I like it back there. But, here we are. Strange men calling me, texting me, talking about, could you speak at my meeting? I don't even know what happened to me. But here we are. Okay. So here's what I've come to understand about the first step. And I understand now that if I don't understand the first step really, really properly, and I'm speaking from like a helping other people standpoint. If the people that I'm helping don't fully understand the first step, that's why I'm struggling to get them to get through the other 11 steps. Because the other 11 steps are the solution to the first step. The first step is the problem. What is the problem? The problem is, for me, threefold. When you read it off the wall, which is how I thought I could work the steps, I got here and I looked around and I was like, why are these people still here 30 years later? I mean, if you did a step a year, you could be done. Like, why are you still? I didn't understand that it was a way of life. I didn't understand that. That I'm not fitting AA into my life. AA is the foundation of my life, and everything else fits around that. What a concept. And I'm not talking about the meeting. I'm talking about the principles that drive my life. So I now understand I can't work the steps off the wall, and I need to understand the first step. And the first step has 3 parts. The first part is that I'm bodily different than my fellows. I drink, and I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it might be okay, but probably not. What really happens for me is that I drink and I get thirsty. Like, I'm obsessed with the idea of that drink. But when I get it, it doesn't satisfy. It expands my obsession with the drink. It goes from a mental obsession to a physical allergy. So I am bodily different than my fellows. I'm older. 64 now, save you the math. And I come from an era of parties with drink tickets. Anybody go to drink ticket parties? The parties where the people couldn't legally sell alcohol, but they could sell you drink tickets, and then you drink. And I remember coming home with friends, and they still had drink tickets, and I wanted to fight them. How could you leave liquor? How could you? Inconceivable to me that you wouldn't drink it if it was there. Inconceivable. Because I'm bodily different than my friends. I'll say this too. I'm not one of those people who suffer drinking. I'm not one of those people that was like, oh my God, it was so nasty, but I did it because blah, blah, blah. If I could wear Scotch as a cologne right now, man, I loved it. I loved it. Oh, so much. I loved it. It was the first thing I can think of that I really, really loved, that I really trusted. Such a betrayal. But you know what it did? Forced me to turn to a God of my understanding. But I got distracted. The second part of my first step problem is the voice in my head. Who's got the voice in their head? The voice in my head that sounds like me, that's a liar. She's a liar. The chapter more about alcoholism gives us these 4 examples of the voice in our head, right? In that chapter, I know could be called the state of mind that precedes a relapse. And my voice talks about a lot of things to me. I'm currently reading this book called The Unpopular Study of the Last 3 Steps, not conference approved. Although I do have the plain language big book, which I'm absolutely reading with a sponsee, and I don't have any issue with we've written something that is simpler, because my goal is to be useful to as many people as possible. And if we need to take it and there's nothing that's simpler, that's more expansive. Something's going to get lost, and that's okay. That's okay. So this chapter, more about alcoholism, gives me these 4 examples, right? Of the voice in my head, right? That precedes a relapse, right? But that's really about drinking, which my voice still, 37 years in, the voice still talks to me. You can have a drink, nobody would know. Here's the one it really says. You were 26, you're probably making too big a deal of it. I mean, come on, really? But the voice is there. The voice is there. And it's a liar, and I know that it's a liar. So it's got the carpet slipper dude. I haven't had a drink in a long time. I can drink. I've certainly thought that. It's got our friend Jim, who doesn't go to work on Monday, but goes to work on Tuesday. Where were you on Monday, Jim? And what does Jim say? I had a few words with the boss. No big deal. For you or for the boss, Jim? What is Jim's voice in his head? I can do some of the work and get all the benefits. He failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life. And I am Jim. I want to do some of the work and get all the benefits. When I got here, this guy relapsed. We've had 10 years in my first home group, the Rap at Noon in Oakland. And, I think I'm smart, but it hadn't fully occurred to me that you could have that much time and drink again. Like I was new, so I hadn't seen that before. Scared me. And I was like, what happened? What happened? What, like a pest? What happened? What happened? And the guy says, you can only coast one way, downhill. Right. Change my recovery. That I do the things I don't want to do to have the life I want to have. So the voice in my head that tells me, like it did Jim, you've got your family reassembled, you have a job, you ain't got to do all that other work. It's a lie. I've got to do the work. I've got to do the work to be free, to be happy, to be joyous, to stand in the sunlight of the Spirit even when it rains. Third one is the jaywalker. I don't need to explain the jaywalker, right? What's the jaywalker think? It's not my fault. It's going to be different this time. It's the milk truck. It's the trolley. No, it's me. I'm the one out in the traffic. I'm the one in harm's way. But I had this mind that allows me to make it your fault. And I had to grow out of that because victims don't recover. My favorite, my personal favorite, is my boyfriend, Fred, man. I love Fred. Not a cloud on the horizon, and then suddenly what? Suddenly a drink's a good idea, right? And I'm Fred today. What is Fred? Self-righteous? They go to the hospital and talk to Fred about their drinking and tell them they have a solution. And what does Fred say? Thanks for the information. That's me. I got to watch that today. This thinking that I can figure it out, that I've got it. No, my job is to turn to God. My God is to seek counsel. My job is to seek counsel from you. I'm never going to get through the steps. Let's speed it up here, Olis. The third part of my first step is the thing that keeps me here. And it's my spiritual malady. Now, the book doesn't describe clearly what it is. The book tells me in great detail what the symptoms of it is. What's the evidence of it? Doctor's opinion. I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. What does we agnostics tell me? This is the bewilderments on page 52, right? Problems in my personal relationships. I can't seem to make a living. I feel useless, right? Prey to misery and depression. That's not the malady. That's evidence of the malady. And I've come to believe that the malady is the delusion that I am disconnected from the power. I think I'm out here on my own. I got to figure it out. I got an Excel spreadsheet. I got a pivot table. I got a to-do list. Like hut 2, 3, let's work it out. And I think I'm God. I don't even know I think that. I think I can, if I do this, you'll do this. If I say this, you'll do this. Right? When I get this new job, when I get this new car, when I get this new relationship, when I get what a new car is? A bill. That's all it is. You get the job, and then you're mad you got to do all that extra work for that little bit of money they gave you. The outside things never make me happy because I can't fix my internal spiritual malady with a material solution. And so what do? Well, I go through the solution steps. What are they? 2. I come to believe that there's a power greater than me, that I could be restored to sanity. Well, here's the trick. I think the second step says that I'm not God. Because if there's a power greater than me, I'm not the greatest power. And if I'm not the greatest power, that means I'm not God, because God is the greatest power. And I believe that is what begins to restore me to sanity. This letting go of I can figure it out. I'm going to make it happen. If you just put some more gas in my tank while I'm at this pit stop, vroom, vroom, that's just a lot. It's a lot. Drunk or sober. In 3, I love 3. I'm a step 3 girl. The interesting part, which took me decades to figure out, is that there's no amen at the end of the 3rd step prayer. And the 3rd step prayer simply opens me into a prayer that's a moving prayer, an action prayer. 4, 5, 6, 7, I'd argue 8, 9 are all action prayers. They're all prayers. You know, and I think unfortunately, we scare the new people about 4. 4 is beautiful. There's this old spiritual exercise that Bill did not invent, but he used it. Thank you, Bill. That I start with where I'm resentful in May. Bill calls it all burnt up. And I follow these specific things all the way through till I get to the place where I can see how I've caused harm. You know, I avoid talking to people about part. I don't talk to my people about part. Because if you let me divide the pie, man, I got a crumb, you got the pie. It's no part. What harm have I done? Where have I made mistakes? Doesn't matter what the other person does. I'm not trying to get them to the sunlight of spirit. I'm trying to get to the sunlight of spirit. And so I do this prayer that's about me. I offer myself to God. I ask God to build with me and do with me. I ask God to relieve me of the bondage of self. I ask God to take away my difficulties. That's what I say. Now, the deal is, so that taking away my difficulties will bear witness to people I will help. But it's all about me. That's where I'm at when I get here. That's where I'm at. But then I go into 4, and I begin to see how my resentments have ruled my life. I begin to see how fear drives everything I do. You know, I'm born and raised in New York. I thought I wasn't afraid of nothing. Afraid of everything. Afraid I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not. You know what? The women will really understand this. If only I could be the size I was the first time I thought I was fat. If only I could be that size, right? Just thinking where I'm at. Oh, this isn't good enough. Oh, this is right. This lie in my head. And then I look back and I was like, that was great. That was great. Somebody called me today talking about, they've started the 11-step practice, which I asked people to do immediately to become conscious of their connection with God. And she said she wandered into morbid reflection. And I was like, well, the man with no shoes always feels better when he talks to the man with no feet. Go find somebody. This new, this struggling, this, yeah, I'm mad about no shoes till I see you ain't got no feet. Then I'm happy for my feet. Forget shoes, right? That's one of the beauties of the fellowship. That I get to not only help you, but in helping you, I get help. I do this sex misconduct, which really is about relationships, and there are 9 questions in it. The one I like, the one that defines really my future, is what should I have done instead? What should I have done instead? Because when I take all of the sex inventories and I pull that one question out, what should I have done instead? And I put them all together, that is my ideal. I should have been honest. I should have asked for what I wanted. I should have waited. I should have been patient. I should have been more considerate. That's my ideal. And it begins to build a vision for my new future. And then somebody in 5 helps me see, there's a woman, Sydney R., I probably gave you her number. Sydney R. says 5 is somebody helps me see the pattern of pain that I have created in my own life. What? I thought you did. My mother abandoned me. My godfather molested me. My husband cheated on me. And really, it's the way that I moved in the world. The book lays it out. 3 is such beautiful writing that I step on the toes of my fellows and then seemingly, right? I love that word. Seemingly, without provocation, they retaliate. It's only seemingly because I don't see myself. I don't see the way that I've moved in a way that people would want to do me harm. 6 and 7 are just a paragraph each in the book, but 6 is this really big deal. That I come to a place where I admit that my behavior is objectionable, not your behavior. My behavior is objectionable. And then 7, I close the prayer, opened in 3, and then this magical thing happens. In 7, I'm not even praying for me anymore. Now I just want God to remove the things that stand in the way of my usefulness. So God, in you, I don't even like you. That's the deal. I have this transformation. I don't have time to talk about it, but let me tell you, hidden between the 3rd and the 4th column is the sick man prayer. And there's something called a realization there, where I ask myself, have I ever done the thing in column 2 to the person in column 1 or anyone else? And it is a magic right sizing experience, because the answer is always yeah. I'm like Fred up on a high horse talking about what you did, and it turns out I've done it. It's just beautiful. The spiritual exercises are beautiful. They really lead to freedom from the bondage of myself, from the thing that I suffer from, my point of view. I think 8 is the pivot step. In 8, I make a list of all the people, right? All the people, all the people. Which people? All the people. Which people? All the people. All of them. And that's just the first half. In the second half, I move from the spiritual practice. The practical practice to the spiritual practice. Practically, I'm writing all the people down. Now, me and people argue about this. I do not believe that all the people on 8 come out of 4. Fight me about it. I just don't believe that. There's some people I didn't have sex with, that I didn't have resentment against, I wasn't afraid of, they on the list. I just didn't like them. I just did them dirty. I didn't like them. I didn't. So it's bigger than 4 for me. But when I get to the second part of 8, it's this spiritual thing, because I've got to have God to be willing to make amends to them all. I can't do that. God has to. I can't do that. I don't cuss at the podium, but you know what I'm thinking about them people, right? That's what I'm thinking about them people. The same thing you think about some of them people. But I've got to move. I got to grow. And God helps me grow past that. And then I go out and prove I'm not scared of people, because I got God. That's the only way to do 9. And I think 9 has 5 parts, right? May I please have some of your time? Now, I do not think, and I tell people why, I do not think I ambush people with amends. Hey, I just want to have coffee, and I get there and start. No, May I please have some of your time? I'm on the spiritual path. This is a part of my spiritual healing. I've done some harm, and I want to own it, and I want to make amends. So I ask for time, and I say why. When I get to the people, I say, here's exactly what I've done. What is the general amends? Well, I don't think I was as thoughtful as I could have been. What did you do, Olis? What did I do? I say what I did. And then I ask the grown-up question. You ready for the grown-up question? This separates the children from the adults. Is there anything else? You might be ready for a long talking to. Is there anything else? Now, here's the door to freedom. How do I make it right? How do I make it right? Or it's not an amends. Just admitting what I already did, which they probably know. If they don't know, you got to be careful, because we don't injure people. How do I make it? How do I set it right? One of my favorites when I'm working with people, they've got the cash on hand. They owe somebody money, but they want to make a payment plan. That is those people money. It's their money. That's their money. What are you holding on to? You want some more time to hold their money? If you don't. I talked to somebody on Tuesday. I was like, I'm going away. I'm going to Phoenix. And when I get back, you better have paid that woman that $500. Actually, I made her put 3% interest on it. I let her decide it was at 3 or 5. Yeah, you owe that woman $750, and that's what I want. I should get my calculator out and make sure she compounded that. It's the woman's money. So that's how I feel about that. Because I'm out of time. Here's what I believe. I believe that God is everything or God is nothing, and the choice is mine. The question in the book isn't God is everything, question mark, God is nothing. The question is the statement, God is everything or else God is nothing. What's your choice to be, Olis? And if I choose that God is everything, then I don't need to hustle nobody for nothing. If I got something that I scammed up for free, I rob myself, because either I believe and trust in the power or I don't. Every now and then I go on Home Depot and the line's really, really long. And I think to myself, if I didn't have God, I would steal this because I don't want to stand online for 5 hours to buy this $3 screw. I just don't want to do it. But I can't spiritually do it. Because anytime I get something for free, I got wrong. It signals to me and to the power that I don't have faith. And faith is the most important thing in my life. So as I said, I'm currently reading this book. So the 5th part of 9 is, I thank them very much for their time. And I leave, and if I don't follow up on things to make it right, then it wasn't an amends. Now, you guys may know this. You know, there's a sect of Alcoholics Anonymous that if you haven't completed your 9th step of amends, you can't even open your mouth and say nothing in the meeting. I love that. Yeah, do the work or shut up. I just love that. All right. So I told you I'm reading this book, The Unpopular Study of the Last 3 Steps. It's available for free, and they sell it for the minimum price Amazon will let them sell it for, you know. And it's written by some probably Fellowship of the Spirit people, it's like hardcore AA people. And it's such a beautiful book. And really what it lays out for people is the first time I worked the 10th step, I worked it in pieces. Because step 10 is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It's making that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 the way I live in the world. That's what 10 is. It's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm inventorying all the time. I'm amending anything I've done wrong. I'm admitting my behavior is objectionable. I'm turning to God for God to help me. I'm making, that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm living. Oh, I'm almost done, but let me just finish. You know what's the killer? Retroactive amends. Who's had retroactive amends? Anybody ever have that? Oh my God. You've done everything and you think you've got everything. And then as you develop spiritually, you look back on something and realize the thing you thought was okay wasn't okay. And now I'm retroactively owing amends. Oh my God. But I want to be free. I want to be free. I'm going to make them amends too. I want to be free. You know, I think 11 is book ending my day. That at night I look back on the most valuable resource I'll ever have. Time. None of us look like spring chickens. I don't want to insult nobody, but none of us look like we and our 15-year-old, right? Now we know we didn't know. I didn't know when I was 26 and I got here. You know what I know now? Time's the most valuable resource I have. Money can't buy that. And so 11 is looking at how I use the most incredible gift that the power has given me, the gift of time. And I look back over the day. I answer the 10 questions on page 86. I look back over the day. And then I ask God to forgive me. Not for a mistake I made with you. I got to ask you to forgive me with that. I ask God to forgive me for the places that I didn't do my best, that I didn't live in alignment with God's will, that I tried to play God. Then I go to sleep. And when I wake up, I think about the day ahead. And I ask God to help me do better. Do better than what? Do better than yesterday. How did I do yesterday? Well, I know that because I did a nightly inventory. And that is my 11-step practice. And even though it looks like I'm examining me, unceasing, unsparing self-examination. Now, I'm really good at inventorying you. Unfortunately, that doesn't bring me to joy and freedom. It just doesn't work. Save yourself. I've tried it. I've really tried it. Doesn't work. It just doesn't. What a waste of time, right? But when I have unsparing, unceasing self-evaluation, where my thoughts come, not just my deeds, where my thoughts come, I'll be falling down on the job there. Then I can actually move on to 12. And what is 12? 12 is 3 parts. There's a promise. If I do this, I have a spiritual awakening. What is that? Personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. I got here unreliable, unkind, undependable, untrustworthy, just I'm not anymore. My word is my bond. It's my bond. I got to be ready at 7:10 in the morning to fly out to go to Phoenix. But I promised somebody, not even in the program, just a friend, I was going to come over and listen to this. wash the cushions on her outdoor furniture for her to give a little repast for somebody. I want to do that like I want you to shoot me in the fleshy part of my thigh. I sure did. I surely did. Because my word's my bond. Now, I didn't wait until the night before I had to go, but I did it because my words, and I live like that. So the first part of 12 is this promise that if I do the work, I'll get the promise. And then I go out and I carry the message, not my message, the message in the book. And then I go out in the world and I try to live like this everywhere. Not the hour I'm with you, especially not the hour I'm with you on Zoom. Like how I live. The person in the supermarket with 3 items, I got a basket full, let them up. The person in traffic, let them in. My family member, who I know for sure is an idiot, be kind, be kind, be kind, be kind. Because sometimes I'm the idiot. All right, I'm done. Thank you. I want to read this before I go. Just bear with me. I'm almost done. I'm going to read this. First full paragraph, page 100. First full paragraph, page 100. I think it's one of the best promises in the book. It's in the chapter, Working with Others. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. My life is remarkable today. When we look back, because that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is, it's a look back, learn. When we look back, we realize, I don't know about you, sometimes I'm on the slow bus. We realize that the things which came to us, not the things I went and got, the things that are mine are on the way to me. What I want wants me. The things that came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands was better than anything we could have planned. Here's the sentence. Follow the dictates. A dictate is not a suggestion. Of a higher power. And you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstance. I don't need to have the health diagnosis, the job, the religion. I don't need to have anything to be happy. I can live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what. Thank you, Eric, for inviting me.